Greetings, Dr. Brandon Frame, founder of the Black Man Can, and we're live in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., Chocolate City, for the Men's Den. Looking forward to a dynamic panel where we're bringing men together, black men together, to talk about love, wealth, and wellness. It's going to be live. It's sold out. We'll have a good time.
My name is Nasa Shelley. I'm here with my co-founder, Sally Hama. We are the co-founders of CarpeDM. So CarpeDM, for those who don't know, is DC's fastest growing dating community for black singles. We provide you with a personal matchmaker, algorithm curated and hand selected matches. And then we pair everything that we do online to help you find love with dope in-person events just like this one. So if you're interested in learning more about CarpeDM, how we can help you find love, two of our matchmakers welcomed you at the door. You can also talk to myself and to Sally, and we'd be happy to share any information we can with you about CarpeDM. We're so excited to be working with Brandon. Just a little tidbit. I think we slid into Brandon's DMs and we were like, we love everything the Black Man Can is doing. It resonates so much with what we're trying to build with CarpeDM. And I think that we were on a phone call like 3 days later. And this partnership just has naturally grown from that conversation, and it's been an amazing opportunity. So thank you so much for being so dope. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to one of the men of the hour, Mr. Brandon Frame.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Let's give it up for yourselves first. Let's give it up. It's beautiful to be here and see all these beautiful faces, meeting people for the first time, people that I've known, some people I've known since I was 17 and 18 years old that are here, so it's really dope. My name is Dr. Brandon Frame, founder of the Black Man Can. The Black Man Can has been around since 2010, so a lot of people you may have interfaced with it on social media. But we started in 2010. Over the last 14 years, we've grown into what it is now: e-commerce, media, and branding, and live events. And so really excited to get into the Men's Den. We actually launched the Men's Den as a video podcast in March. So just in March, we launched it, and here we are. You can check it out. Thank you so much. You can check it out on YouTube. You can check it out on Spotify. You should go on YouTube and subscribe. We need those subscribers, so please take time that. We have 3 episodes that are taped. This is actually our 3rd in-person live audience version of the Men's Den. We had one last week in New York that was building brands that lead with community. So we had black men who have built different brands, but they're community focused. Before that, has anybody ever seen the show Johnson on Hulu? If you're looking for something to watch, you should watch Johnson on Hulu. So we did a Men's Den with the cast of Johnson. If I give you an example of what that's like, it's like Black Male Insecure. So I would say you definitely want to check it out. It's really good. We have one actually this coming Sunday at the We Nation Conference. That's with formerly incarcerated men who have gotten out, built businesses. So as you can see, what we do is we create these conversations, but center black men, center black male voices across a myriad of topics. So just really excited to then bring up now our panelists. We have different ways that we introduce, so I'm just going to call them up, and then we'll get right into the conversation. So first up, can I have Durelle Bailey join us on the stage? Give him a round of applause. Next, can we have Frank Brown Jr. join us on stage? And next, can we have Corey Daise join us on stage? So as you see, there is a person that is missing. Jay Otto is not here. His wife gave birth yesterday, so he cannot join us. So he sends his regards, and we're going to plan something in the future. But I'll give it up to our panelists. So our topic as we get in today is around love, wealth, and wellness. But if you haven't seen an episode of the Men's Den, a lot of times how I started off is a lot of times when black men get together, and maybe the brothers in the room can attest to this. You get together and it's like, yo, it's good to see you, bro. I'm just trying to be like you. It's real kind of like this humble that. But here in the Men's Den, we like to, they don't know this question is coming, but we like to be, it's a place where you brag, right? This is how you introduce yourself. So the question I have, we'll start with you, Durelle, and we'll go down, is tell us why you him? Why you one of them ones? Why you that guy? So that's how we start. That's how we open up at the Men's Den. So I'm going to turn the mic over and tell us why you him.
That's tough. You're going to have these people in here thinking I'm cocky. How y'all doing? Y'all look good. Y'all look really good. So I'm Durelle Bailey, and let me see. How am I going to answer this question? So first of all, I am a husband, right? I'm a friend, I'm a mentor, I'm a supervisor, I'm a business owner. So my mindset is to serve. You know, that's my background. I love to serve, and I always say that you are most qualified to help the people that you once were. So a lot of the content that I put out is about, you know, helping the anxious person because I was once anxious, helping the depressed person because I was once depressed, helping the person who feels stuck and not seen and different things like that. And so coming from a tough background, I wanted to share those stories and share motivation and talk about planning and different things like that. So I would say I'm him because I serve, and I'm also rooted in him as well. And so that's why I'm him as well. So yeah, yeah.
Why am I him? How do you answer that? If I'd have known that question was coming, I would have worked for it. I am a very low-key person, but I'm outside a lot, and I have created a lot. I love my black people, and I've created a lot of spaces for us to come into places where we're usually not welcome or not usually programmed for and do events. So if any of you came to the Kennedy Center last summer for the summer series, the DJ series, the rooftop series, I do events that pull in about 3,000 people each, and we have a good time, and it's for black, brown faces in unique places, and we go up. So that's my him moment, I guess. Right? Yeah. Does your mic work? I don't have a mic. Oh, boom, yeah. Let me stretch.
Can y'all hear me if I don't use the mic? No? Yes? Okay. Yes. You can hear me? All right. So why am I him? First and foremost, I'm a child of God. We're all him and her and they and them because we are children of God. I'm a life and leadership coach. I help black entrepreneurs and leaders find their purpose, find their poise, find their power, find their play. I help them navigate a world that isn't designed for them and find joy in their process. I'm a loving father. I'm a football coach. I support young men to grow up to be the best versions of themselves, and that's why I'm him.
Let's give them all a round of applause. And so now I just want to get into the topics, right, that we're going to talk about. So first, we'll just start with love, and I'm going to start with you, Durelle, the viral sensation who's making really amazing content. And when we think about love, when we think about that content that you're putting out there, it starts with this idea of a planning, right? And then, as you sit with your wife and you're going to plan what the year looks like. Tell us about what and how you do that, why that's important in terms of your journey in love.
Absolutely, absolutely. So first and foremost, shout out to my beautiful wife sitting over here in the corner. Got to shout her out. But I would say that, in regards to building legacy and in regards to building the family that you want to have and reaching the goals that you want to reach, it's important to have vision. But if you don't have a plan to go with the vision, then you can miss the mark. And so being intentional about where you want to go, being intentional about how you want to get there is why we plan. So me personally, I come from a background where we moved at least 12 times by the time I was 12 years old, right? And I had a very tumultuous upbringing, and that's because we didn't plan. We didn't have a lot of function. We did a lot of praying about it, but we didn't plan for things, right? And so that's what we do in our community. We pray about it, and we leave it where it's at. And so when I got married to my wife, we were very ambitious about what we wanted to do. And a lot of times our goals would match with each other, and we would have a little bit of conflict. And so we decided that, with Samantha working in corporate and myself in government, we realized that these organizations, they plan, they get together, they have their annual meetings, they have their quarterly meetings, and they talk about where the money is going and how the different departments are going to accomplish collective success for those businesses. And I said, you know what, Samantha, we're going to plan and we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about our different departments, the Department of Finance and travel and personal and professional goals. And when we sat down and talked about those things, it became very clear how we could support each other, and also it became very clear on what we can and can't do, right? Things like traveling, it's like, okay, if we don't have the money to go to Columbia, we might have to settle for the District of Columbia, right? And you don't know those things unless you actually plan it out and look at it, right? And so just being intentional and what that's done for us, we've been able to do quite a bit, and I'm glad we've done it, and we'll never look back. And so, yeah.
I love that. I love that. And it just have you? I don't know if you've seen the content. It's like really, really powerful in terms of what they're doing, and they actually provide updates as well. So if you want to follow and check it out, you'll see the initial and then how they're planning and whatnot. And so, Frank, when I was going through your social media and doing my research on you, you had posted this tweet, or it was on Threads, but it was tell your friends you love them. It's not corny. And so I wanted to get into, when we think about love, not just on the romantic side, but when we talk about our fellow brothers and our friends, and why is it we have to show up for them and show them love? It's not corny to tell them that that you love them, and brotherhood and everything around that.
Yeah, a lot of my character around love is based off of loss. So I'm very protective of the people I know, and I'm also very protective about the moments what's happening in the moments when I'm walking away from them, because I've lost a lot of people, and fortunately, the times before that were good times. So it's not a memory of, oh well, man, we were having an argument and then he gone. So it's when you lose a lot of people, sometimes it can still shape you in a way that makes you want to make every moment matter and make sure every person that you know knows that they matter, and that's important to me.
Absolutely, I love that. And Corey, I want to come over to you. When I look at your content and the work you're doing, one thing that also is appearing is around fatherhood, right? And we're about to enter the month of June, and Father's Day is right around the corner. Tell us about a father's love and what that's like from the time you saw your children into what they're doing now, as well as the love that you have for the work that you do in terms of mentoring young men.
I think a father's love is very important, not only for the children, but I think as a father, my biggest growth as a person was learning from my kids, learning from my daughter how to be soft, how to be loving from my daughter, and that trickled over to my stepson. I think the most impactful relationship I've had in my life has been my daughter and my stepson. We've grown, my stepson and I have grown together so much that I think it's impacted me as a football coach. It's impacted me as a leadership coach with the clients that I work with. The last panelist talked about love. I think leading with love as a man and as a father, that impacts the children differently, and it can impact us men differently. I think our biggest learning curve as men is learning how to be fathers. We all didn't have the best examples. My father was great. There were a lot of things that I took from my father that worked for me, and a lot of things that I had to learn on my own that I couldn't take from him. So I think defining who we want to be as fathers can really be impactful for us and our families in our communities.
I mean, I love that response, and as we just stick on the love and dive a little bit more into the romantic side of love, and thinking about we're here and we're so gracious for CarpeDM for the support and the partnership. Talk to us either, depending on where you are, what were you doing, what are you doing, or what did you do to intentionally prepare yourself for a partnership with somebody else?
That's very good. Well, so I've been married for 7 years. We just hit our 7-year anniversary a week ago. And so we actually met on Instagram in 2013 where there was no algorithm. And so I don't know how we met because my wife is from Canada. And so nothing but God, right? And so, but I would say rather than preparing for love, because I think I immediately fell in love with her, I had to prepare my mind for marriage. And I had to prepare for the commitment and the covenant in itself because I come from a fatherless home and I didn't have the example of what that looks like. And so being intentional, being accountable, learning how to communicate effectively, and sticking within my foundation in order to lead my family in the way I wanted to lead it. And so, I would say that's how I became ready to love and to love selflessly and to love unconditionally.
I think I probably have a different. So I think we all have a different experience. For me, being married and then now being single again, I came back into a world of you can't take me to Cheesecake Factory and we can't eat it. So I was like, whoa, what happened? So in talking about getting prepared for love, it's like, okay, well, and the same things that I talk about when I was coaching and I was asking people, it's like, okay, well, what did I learn from this whole thing? What am I looking for now? And then, what does the person I want? Because that determines for me, okay, well, look, do I have that inside of me? Is that something that I can provide or produce? Am I equipped to be somebody that person would want to even date or love. And so preparing to be that person has been the mission that I've been on, you know, getting together financially, getting together work-life balance-wise, getting it all together to be able to present myself then again and say, okay, well, cool, here I am, like, now we can actually do this thing correctly. Oh, here you go.
Like you, brother, I was married and I'm divorced now, back outside, and back outside, yeah. And I think love and partnership are things that aren't talked about enough in relationships. Like you said, Cheesecake Factory, there's a lot of noise out here about relationships, especially from black men and black women, and we're pitted against each other a lot, and we all play into it. And I think, you know, love and partnership should be at the forefront of these conversations, as opposed to what you can do for me or what I bring to the table, what you bring to the table. Like, really, what's most important? Define your own personal values, define what it is that you're looking for in relationship, and who you need to be in order to generate the relationship that you're looking for. So less back and forth, less, going back and forth about, you know, what you bring to the table, more about, you know, coming together as a unit.
Yeah, I want to double click on that, you know, the idea of no, 'cause I think that we, through social media, it would appear that there's our gender wars, right? And it's black men versus black women. And if we haven't learned anything over the last 400 years, let alone the last 4 years, is that black men and black women need each other, right? And we have to sit down and have these conversations and like, oh, here's what my challenges are. Here's what her challenges are. Because the truth of the matter, I look in the room, there's a bunch of black and brown people. And so when we're at home, we are at peace. But then we all have to walk outside to fight systemic racism, classism, capitalism, and the list goes on. And so if we don't work together, we're not going to be able to reach the liberation that we need. So no, I just appreciate you elevating that, because that's what we have to do. And so just thinking about that and what you all shared in terms of where you are specifically to, you know, just in terms of dating. And so I think about CarpeDM matchmaking service. What are your thoughts and feelings and about black men being intentional and looking at matchmaking services as a way to find their forever?
I'll let you guys start this one. Here, all right, we'll come back this way.
Smart brother right there. What I think about CarpeDM services, I think they're very necessary. I think it's necessary, like I just talked about, to bring us together, to be intentional. That word intentional has been talked about from the last few panelists, but you know, being intentional about partnership and what you're looking for, and having valuable conversations with each other. I think that's so necessary in our community, and grateful, you know, that this service is provided for us to be able to have these type of conversations and these meetups and do this type of work.
I think you have to want to be intentional. Outside is fun. Outside is fun, especially in DC, and especially for black men in DC. And if we're gonna be honest, we're gonna be honest. And I don't think that the culture makes it easy for us to want to be intentional, because we see all the, okay, we'll be out every night, we could do this, we could do that, we can meet 10 people a night, you know. So I think you have to, for someone like me who actually wants to have a family and have kids and do all that stuff, you know, then yes, that intention starts to build, and I say, okay, well, you know, I need to get off the streets and I need to start actually preparing myself to meet someone. But for some other people who don't want those things, you know, they're gonna be 50 and still having a ball, you know what I mean? And it's pliable to do that. So I think the intention is a requirement, because some of these people are looking at some of these men who and expecting them to want to take them seriously, and they're not going to, because they want to be able to roam freely and be at Funset and be at St. X and be at, you know, every weekend. And I can't blame them, because it's a good time. But if you want kids and all that other stuff, you got to actually turn around, be intentional, let that life go. Have a funeral for it. Go home.
That's funny. I thought you was getting ready to say it's fun, but you know, it gets old or whatever. But at least you're being honest, right? At least you're being honest. You know what I'll say? I think that having an app, and from my understanding, it's a community that allows you to, it does a background check and it filters through the people, so you know that they're intentional about finding someone. And so if I were single, I'm not. If I were single, then I think I would absolutely love to, use something like that. And I think it's a good program for individuals who is looking for love, for sure.
And so I'm going to stay a little bit on like the romantic side of love before we move into wealth and self-care and wellness. If you could share, even Durelle, you can go back to, or you can talk about the challenges in terms of even being in a marriage. But what are some unique challenges in romantic relationships that Black men face, and how have you personally navigated them?
That's good. That's a great question. I would say one of the unique challenges is being personally accountable, and being able to see your weaknesses, see the areas that you can grow in, and actually be gracious with yourself and allow yourself to grow in those areas. Because if you're not careful, you'll carry this heart of trying to be be a perfectionist, or try to carry the stigma which was placed on us when we were young, which is, you don't complain, you just do, you just work. And so when your wife has something to say to you, you might respond in a way that's like, I'm working hard, I'm doing what I got to do, and you complaining now. But when you are accountable to yourself, that means I would say you have an internal locus of control, which means that you can identify that what I do and how I respond to things is a responsibility of mine, and not everything that's going on around me, and not my circumstances. If you're the type of person that's not accountable, you have an external locus of control. That means that you're going to blame the situation. You're going to blame the reason you raising your voice on your spouse, or on your emotions, or how they ticked you off. So I would say accountability for sure would be a good answer for that. Yeah.
So number one, that intentionality and the challenges, and going back to that, talking about when I came back outside and the conversations that were being had were really loud. Social media is really making it hard to want to be intentional, because you're scrolling and you're just hearing, man ain't shit, and you're hearing, I need this, and you're hearing, and at a time you're like, actually, you know what? No, maybe I don't want to. But when you get off of the social media and you actually come into real life, you realize there are real women out here who aren't like that. And when you have these type of conversations, and you have these, or when we create space that can have these open conversations, you're like, oh yeah, she's really cool and she has a head on her shoulders. You're like, maybe there is a chance that, I could, so that's one. But also accepting some realities as a man on the negative side too, of like, okay, I can do this, but I can't do that. There are certain double standards that I need to be aware of. There are certain things that I know I can't say. There are certain things that certain situations I might end up in. There is a group where it's like, are we dating the same man? And somebody might post you in there. Like, you have to know, like, oh, these are all possibilities now of this thing. You have to know how to navigate that. You know what I mean? I might take a date to somewhere and another one might be there. How do I do? Like, you got to know and understand and learn these lessons and get people in DC, date other people. You can't be mad about it. If you're going to be really dating out here, you got to know some of them. You got to know the difference between a person that has you saved in their phone as food and a person who's serious about you. Like, you got to learn the intricacies, and that is a real challenge, because we get sensitive and we get butthurt. But like, when you accept something, you just know that it's going to happen. Sometimes you can navigate it a little better.
One of the biggest challenges I think about when I think about Black men in relationships is being willing to be vulnerable. I think being willing to show that side of you that you don't have to be Superman. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all right. I think, I can remember one of the clients that I've worked with, one of his biggest challenges when we first started, he wanted to divorce his wife. And we started talking. He said he didn't feel comfortable having these type of conversations with her. And it stemmed from his relationship with his father. When he grew up with his father, he said he never saw his father sweat. Right? His father never showed emotion, all of that. And he internalized that, and that ended up weighing on him. So he had all this stress about not being able to open up to his wife and not share his emotions. And he felt the disconnect between them, and he didn't realize that it was him creating that disconnect because he wasn't willing to be vulnerable. So I think us as Black men, we got to be willing to be vulnerable, show that vulnerable side of us. It's not comfortable. It doesn't always feel safe. It doesn't always feel good. But, you know, showing that side of you will open up so much for you and so much for your relationship.
So I was about to go to self-care, but I'm going to stay real quick because you said something that I think is very important, and I would love to, I think it's really important to hear men talk about this. So you talked about safe space. What does it look like, or what advice would you give from your own perspectives that you know that a safe space is created for you to be vulnerable? What does that look like for you, or even, what does that look like for you?
Two things I think about when I think about a safe space. Number one is an active listener, someone who's willing to listen, open, provide you feedback, and not try to provide you solutions all the time. Just listen, just be an open, willing ear, and someone who's able to provide validation. Our feelings, like I said, we don't always need the answers. Like, we'll be able to come up with the answers for ourselves. If we ask you for advice, if we ask you for answers, feel free. But a lot of times people just need validation for how they feel. We go through so much in the world today as black men, a lot of black women in this room tonight. We go through so much in the workplace, out here in the open, and we want to come home to a safe space and just know that our feelings can be validated, and just know that we can be heard, we can be felt, and we can be strengthened at home.
Safe space sometimes looks like your guys, the guys that are really actually close to you and care about you, the ones that tell you they love you. That's what safe space looks like. For women, that's not very plentiful. Like, I'm on the side of, like, go with caution. Get too deep with caution, because sure, they'll pat your head, but they'll be on a phone call or you'll be in a group message the next minute talking about, girl, he ain't crying. It's a real thing. That's a real thing. And in a dating world where now it's prevalent to get divorced because it's, why? He no longer served me. Or, he's too emotional for me, or he's too vulnerable for me, or, he lost his job for 30 days and couldn't provide, so I had to leave. And then you want men to come in and I would say lead with caution. And if you find somebody who you can actually be open with, and your view of her or her view of you doesn't change, then you need to go to the ring store, because it's not plentiful. And if you find it, you need to keep it.
That's good. I would say a safe space really looks like love unconditionally, because you can't expect somebody to validate you if they hold resentment towards you, and they're validating you because they think they should be validating you, or you've asked to be validated. So I think the intention to love selflessly, to love unconditionally, and to want to grow with your partner, I had to get to a place where I realized that winning the argument wasn't necessarily winning the argument, because at the end of the day, you still lost the battle, right? And I realized that it's important to make sure that I am moving in selfless love. That way she feels safe in order to come to me about her problems, and then she will then reciprocate that energy as well, right? And so a safe space is just, like I said, loving unconditionally and getting to a place where you can do that. And that may take therapy. That may take understanding yourself a little bit better, right? And so, yeah, that may take therapy. Yeah.
Yeah, it made me think of, sometimes I like to say you want a safe space, like, for a man is when, so when I greet men, it's like, what's up, king, right? So you see yourself as a king, but when you meet somebody, they're going to see the cracks in your crown and the dents in your armor, but you still want them to love you in spite of, right? And so that's what I kind of took away from what you're talking about. And moving into, getting into wellness, we'll just start with a general question is, what does self-care, ensuring that you are prioritizing your mental health, what does that look like for you?
That's good. So for me, that looks like knowing yourself, knowing your triggers, knowing when you're stressed, knowing when you're anxious, knowing when to step back, and having a routine in place to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And I realized, I was talking to a friend the other day, that there's a difference between self-care and self-soothing. And so self-care is when you're doing the things that you have to take care of yourself. You have to eat right. You have to exercise, talk to family, different things like that. when you're stressed out and you need to take a break from life, you might need to self-soothe. You might need to travel. You might need to shop. You might need to dance with, your favorite song playing or whatever the case may be. So knowing yourself and knowing when to take a step back, take a breather, and then tapping into your community, tapping into your foundation, your spiritual wellness, and staying there and being consistent in that. And so just really knowing yourself and having a plan in place to make sure that you're taken care of.
Knowing yourself, knowing your needs, knowing what picks you back up. I think these things are very important. It's a knowledge of self. And as men, I think there's also things that we look at. There's a new study that said men need to hang out with their boys at least 2 times a week, 2 nights a week. That's important. If y'all really support our mental health and wellness, y'all will let us do that. You wouldn't be mad about it. So we need to do that. Know your anchors. Study anchors. There's a thing called anchors where you can attach a feeling to an action or something that happens. And so, for me right now, currently, no matter what mood I'm in, if Not Like Us comes on, I'm up. I think that's for a lot of people. But if you know the things that anchor you emotionally, you can use those things to kind of change your mood when you need or in a time of need. So, it's really a knowledge of self thing and knowing what triggers you, what makes you happy, and what brings you to a certain state of mind.
Like you both said, it's very individualistic. Take time to try new things, figure out what works for you. We think about self-care as all the massages, the talks, the things like that. But, take time to try new things and figure out what works for you. And for me, the biggest part of self-care was learning how to treat myself good. As a former athlete, as a football coach, I learned how to go hard. I learned how to go, be that guy that just goes hard all the time and be hard on myself to pursue what it is that I wanted. And one of my biggest growth points was to learn how to treat myself good and be kind to myself and be okay with where I was at that time instead of, being so hard on myself and things like that. So really, I want all the men in here to hear this. Learn how to treat yourself good. Learn how to be kind to yourself.
Yeah, that's real. We definitely don't always do that. So maybe that touched me. I was like, yeah. So I won't be doing that. And so we want to get to question and answer. So one thing that I've learned in life is that God doesn't wear a watch, right? And sometimes we are, we want to lean on our own understanding, and then we want to try to find this balance. I don't even necessarily believe in work-life balance anymore. I try to do this concept of work-life integration, right? Here's all the things that I'm doing. How do I integrate it all together? But share a little bit how you find either this work-life integration, work-life balance, or try to maneuver through being fathers, husbands. You got your dreams and your goals. You got your friends, and how you navigate and trying to find harmony and all of that.
That's a great question. You know what? I think I agree with you. I don't know if there's a such thing as a work-life balance. I think you just have to really learn how to steward the season that you're in well. So sometimes that season may look like putting a lot of work in so you can reap the harvest later. Sometimes that season may look like just resting and taking some time away, and you may feel guilty because you're not working hard enough. And so I think it's just really about stewarding the season that you're in and being okay with the place that you're in. When you think about, trees, right? They can't choose to be in winter and summer at the same time because they want to feel both. There's no balance in that. So there's a season for growth and there's a season for stillness. And so I think just stewarding the season that you're in and just, like I said, when things are getting a little bit stressful, knowing yourself well enough to tap into, self-care and self-soothing and taking a step back and talking to your family, talking to your community, getting with your boys, and just try to steward that season well and tapping into your faith as well. So.
Yeah, I would love to say that I have a healthy work-life balance, but I don't. And, the reason why I could, but I came to the realization that I'm behind, that a lot of us are behind. And I didn't realize that until I started working with people of other cultures, and they were having conversations about putting down $200,000 on a home. And I had to realize the difference was not what we made, because we both made the same thing. The difference was what we kept. And so I had to start thinking about, okay, well, what as a culture do we spend money on? What as a culture are we taught to spend money on? How do we steward our money, And when I really started looking at what I had and what they had, I realized that in order to live the life that they were living, which was a comfortable life, I was going to have to spend a year or two just nose to the ground. Is that the most healthy thing to do? No. To do it while you're younger? Maybe, So it is that delayed gratification of, I could do it now for the next 2 years, and then in 2 years, now I'm like, okay, well, I can take off days because, I have the money in the bank. I can take off days because my pension's been built up. I can take off days because I have built into my annuity. I may be able to buy a boat and be out on the Potomac, get my friends to come, and we all put in $100 and buy some bottles, and we can live that life now because we've done it correctly to set it up that way. And when I realize that, and I see that points where I need to get to actually be comfortable, to be that kindergarten teacher who's on HDTV buying an $8,000 home, and we're all going, how? We can all get there. It's just we have to change what the culture has taught us to do. And that's mine.
Brandon, you just gave me a quote here. You said, God does not wear a watch. I'm going to put that in my pocket here. God is good. God is good. All right? So if God is good all the time, one of the questions that I ask myself and my clients, right? If this is for my good, what could God be trying to show me? So thinking about it with that mentality as opposed to like, oh, I'm delayed, I'm behind, I'm this, I'm that. Like, no, God has me here for a reason. What could God be trying to show me with this moment? I think that mind shift would really help us. And to the second part of your question, I would say don't play about yourself. I would say be intentional about your self-care. Like, I don't miss the gym. I have bi-weekly calls with my Morehouse brothers. I have therapy, right? I don't miss things with my daughter. Like, don't play about yourself. Don't let your schedule get too busy and backed up that you don't find time for yourself.
You see I have a bunch of cards here, so I could keep going, but we want to turn it over to all of you. So again, so grateful that you're here. I was sitting here and I see people come, like, people came, they really came to the event, but I want to turn it over to you all, so you could put your hand up or whatnot, and we can come around, or you might have to speak really loud. I don't think the microphone is going to reach all the way over there. We'll start over here with your question, and then, the panel can share.
Yeah, I do have a question for the panel. More of a comment that leads into a question. I think it sounds like to me. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I appreciate y'all being here. Right. So it sounds like to me in the conversation, these are great topics. And they really, really, really need to be explored for people that either want relationships or people that are in relationships. But there's two dynamics in the relationship, the male and female, or if y'all don't swing that way, then it's something else, right? But you still have to understand that. So it seems like we kind of tiptoeing on things that we really, really need to draw out. And I'm kind of puzzled. Are we not saying things as men because there are women in the room? Because if we are, then that defeats the purpose of having a safe space or even talking about a safe space. If we're afraid as men to say what's really, really going on, then are we cheating the women out of our authenticity?
How close are you to the men that you have these conversations with?
I don't give them any space to not be far from me.
Okay, so but you know them.
Say what?
But you know them though.
I'm intrusive with my leadership.
All right, so this is could very easily turn into a Fresh and Fit podcast. If we were to just sit here and just yah to not just the women but an audience that necessarily we haven't built the rapport with yet to just drop everything on, it could go very wrong. I think that everyone in this room has a different map, right? We all have a different map of what reality is. And for the four men that are up here right now talking, we have a map of what everything is. And what we're kind of doing, what this conversation is doing, is exposing everybody else to what our map might look like and some things that they may not have ever heard or ever heard men say, or you may not have ever known that a man felt that way. And that's a very, that's not a fast process to just come in and just say, you guys are messing this up. That's not what we aim to do. What we aim to do is come and create a conversation where they can hear a little bit at a time of what we're trying to say, And then in turn, they might go out in the world and figure out that that's true, and then they'll believe us, they'll come back, they'll trust us, and then we'll say something else. Then they'll go back in the world, they'll see that it's true, they'll come back to us, and they'll believe us, and they'll trust us, and say, oh, they really know what they're talking about. Then we'll have this again. And then every time we all kind of transfuse a little more information back and forth, and that's how maps and scopes get changed between two people. I mean, am I wilding? So I know, because I know you probably feel like we as men should be up here just like saying something real. And we could do that. We all have hot takes. But that takes time to present in a way that it will be rightfully received.
Like, this is the time to really add advice and really connect to people that are so I understand what you're saying over there in the corner. So I think this is the time for when we really need to hear certain things.
So then I would say that's what the question and answer time is for, right? So now you're going to ask the questions, and you're going to ask to a person who you really want to hear it from, and now we're going to be able to now say what we think, right?
So yeah, I want to open it up to 2 questions. That's what the question and answer portion is for. So we're gonna go here, then right here. So and go, and then.
So as we kind of bring it back a little bit, pop it down a little bit in that space, we talked about just creating like intentional spaces. I kind of want to just kind of go back there a little bit because Frank, you said something about like, I know a lot of your love comes from loss, right? And so in that, and when you said that, I just want to understand a little bit more about how, like, because intention for sometimes can also look like a space that you have to continue to create for yourself on a continuous basis, right? And not just like a part-time thing, or we've talked about the work-life balance and it all kind of goes in together, right? So as you continue to kind of like, I guess, outside or continue to like grow in your space, does your intentional space look like for your growth, for you to be able to continue to like find love, or what that looks like for you?
Right. So while I'm building, while I'm focused on working, while I'm focused on, also at the same time being outside, my intention to find love is built on, number one, knowing why I want to find love. I do want kids. I do want a wife. I understand the power of having a wife. I'm looking at positive examples of beautiful black couples, and I'm learning from that. I'm looking at it and saying, what out of this do I want? What are the characteristics that I want? What characteristics as a man do I need to work on to represent that as oneness with somebody else? So that intention is also learning. I've got to be studying, and I've got to be looking at the things that I want, or I'm saying I'm wanting, and studying that person and saying, what does that person want and need from me? I can't just be a slouch and marry the type of woman that I want to marry. You know what I mean? I have to be intentional in having a certain, or trying to uphold a certain lifestyle, trying to be able to make sure I can do certain things, that we can travel, that my kids, that I could be at school with my kids and their ballets and all that stuff like that. That's the intentional life that I'm trying to create right now, so I can be ready for when my queen comes.
So in the spirit of vulnerability, I will ask you, what is a responsibility that comes with being specifically a man that you don't like? I'll give you an example. Sometimes I find it annoying that I have to be the bigger man. So, for example, I spoke to 2 young ladies downstairs, and we mentioned the communication gap between men and women. And I'm of the belief that we speak 2 different languages. And I realized that in order to get anywhere, I have to humble myself and understand her language. I have to be the bigger man, and rather than be imposing what I mean of words to her, I need to figure out what she means or what she's saying. So I can say 2 + 2 is 4, but she's like, well, I feel like 2 + 2 = 6. And it's like, okay, fine, what does 2 mean to you? And figure it out. That is me being the bigger man. And sometimes I don't like doing it, but I understand that I have to do it to resolve the situation or whatever the case may be. So that's me being vulnerable to you all about something I don't like about being a man, but I'm willing to do it. So I'm curious for you all to be vulnerable. Is there something about specifically being a man that you don't like doing?
Well, yeah. So I'll try to answer your question. I think as a man, we're called to be leaders in the household. You're called to be a husband. So I think as a leader, sometimes you have the responsibility to communicate in a way that, makes a safe space for your wife, and makes a safe space for the person that you with. And that may feel uncomfortable to you sometimes, but that's okay. That comes with the responsibility of being a good husband, or being a good boyfriend, or showing your future spouse that you're more interested in helping them grow as well. And so it's okay to feel those feelings of discomfort when you're trying to understand something, but that's what comes with leadership. And I talked about kind of loving unconditionally. That's what comes with loving unconditionally as well. Everything's not going to feel comfortable all the time, and sometimes you may get annoyed, but you have to know yourself well enough, and you have to lead in that capacity where you're creating a safe space for them to grow. And you can circle back around and communicate, that you were a little bit frustrated with whatever it was, but that's just a part of the responsibility when you want to build a family, want to build a legacy, if that makes sense. Oh, if there's something that I don't like, oh yeah, of course, yeah. What specifically don't I like? Can we ask my wife to leave the room? Is that all right? Is that all right? What specifically don't I like? That's a good question. Let's see. So I would say admitting when I'm wrong. That's a big one, right? Because sometimes we want to feel like we know the answer, and sometimes we don't. So admitting when I'm wrong, and kind of, apologizing and humbling myself, and letting her know that I am wrong, and apologizing from that aspect as well. So that's something that's a bit uncomfortable. Yeah, no problem.
It's not even admitting that you're wrong. You're always wrong. I remember when I got divorced, they were like, oh, well, you're divorced. And then, like, literally every woman I met on Q was like, oh, what did you do? And I was like, what the fuck? Like that, but that's the reality of being a man. I think also, hot takes, well, like you were saying, you have a conversation. You have to kind of like tiptoe and dance around. That's definitely a thing, because if you don't and you just say what you feel, all of a sudden now you Kevin Samuels, and then you have a heart attack and they dancing on your grave. You know what I mean? Like, so, you got to be careful about how you present your hot takes. You do. I completely agree with you.
Same as you, bro. Being the bigger man. I remember talking to my coach about, why do I always have to do this? She told me, because you can. And I was like, damn, yeah, you're right. And for me, like, heavy is the head that wears the crown. So yeah, that sucks. I hate it, especially when you're in it. And I also realized that skill helps me in a lot of different places. Like, I've had conversations with grown men, successful grown men, and it's devolved into middle school conversations. And I'm like, what are we doing? And, not going back and forth and engaging in that type of energy has helped me. So yeah, just like you, brother, that being that bigger man, it's a bitch sometimes. But remember, that skill can help you in other places, and who it is that you're trying to be in that relationship can really help you.
And also, this is what I mentioned earlier about the realities that we just have to accept. Like, and I saw you nod, and I was like, yeah, you got it.
Y'all for your share, man, your wisdom, and for this platform. I appreciate y'all. The men and women, very beautiful, black excellence, history in the making, top tier type stuff going on. I would.
Pedro, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pedro.
I was visiting with a group of men recently, man, distinguished men that I respected, and I was asking questions. I'm a mental health coach. I'm a barber. I got a barber shop. I opened up and created a safe space for men to come to, so I'm really an advocate for this. So a question just to piggyback off of what you guys are talking about, this vulnerability piece, which I feel is like the silent killer in men. A recent study in the UK, suicide is #1 death rate of men, right? And we're not far in the US. It's like the silent killer, they call it. So a lot of men are checking out, but it's the vulnerability and that burden of being the bigger person all the time. So my question and my thing is coming to, it was married men and good married men. And I asked them, what's the benefit to being married? So this is one of those things that we want the ladies to lead a room for.
Right.
So, because all the husbands gave me real answers. Yo, what's the benefit to being married? They do everything away. There's no benefit. The only benefit, right, is if you got a woman who can hold your vulnerable side. When you don't got a person that you feel safe can get you in all of your dark, light, feminine, masculine, good, bad, inner child, grown man, all that. If you don't got a woman there, they said behind every good man is a good woman. They ain't say she had a shotgun back there though. You know, so a lot of men are really silently respecting their wives, but scared too to muddy up the waters. And that bigger person to rationalize and reason with your emotion has become a burden on a lot of men, because we're saying, it ain't that difficult for me to understand her, but in order to live in her world, I gotta be a total different person. I'm already being that for my children. I'm already being that at the job. I'm already being that in front of different races of people and all these things. My lady is the last place I wanna, and when a man can't do that, we gotta be warriors and we wanna be lovers. So for married or not married, I'm not just gonna say there's no benefit to marriage, that's gonna trigger the entire system. But this is a secret, kind of man code I'm putting out there. But that I accept that vulnerable space, even as a man, me too, I need that. If you can't be that, no deal. We'll be tight friends to the end. But more benefits, persuade us men the benefits of being married outside of that piece of, because we know we need that. And just having somebody to build with. Why can't a man just be great, have his options, a man, I mean, we're not lacking options. Why can't a man just do his thing, man, and just pick and choose, kind of like that. I know I said a lot, man, but, work with a brother. Thank y'all.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. Yeah. I think there, first of all, there's pros and cons to being single and pros and cons to being married. So, when you're single, you can find a ton of reasons on why you want to get married. And when you get married, you can find a ton of reasons on why you want to be single. But to answer your question in terms of, what are the benefits of marriage? The first thing I would say is I think sometimes we get, I know the burden is heavy, but I think sometimes we get so caught up in self, where we live in this society where it's all about me. And if it doesn't serve me, then I need to cut it off. If it doesn't serve me, then I need to get rid of it. If it doesn't serve me, I think I read something the other day, somebody saying, well, if it don't make me money, then I don't want nothing to do with it. And I think we're here to serve. We're here to love unconditionally. And so when it comes to marriage, I think that number one, having a partner, having a person to go through life with is extremely important. And to get back to your comment about being with somebody who is not willing to listen, they're not really understanding, they have a lot of growth that needs to take place. I think that's why it's important for CarpeDM to help us out so we can vet, right? But it's important that you marry the right person. It's important that you date intentionally. It's important that you understand who they are. And it's not just about the family. Somebody say, well, you can look at that person's family and say how they're gonna be. I come from a broken family, and if you're willing to grow, if you're willing to adjust, you can still be a good partner to your person, right? And so I would say just, if you're in a situation to where things are hard, seek therapy. Like, get into therapy and talk about the issues. And I know that can be tough at times, but you have to be willing to grow. And then I'm gonna put this in there. This is just Durelle speaking. You gotta get into that word. You got to get into that word, man. And I know, sometimes we feel like we can do this thing called life on our own. But I'm telling you right now, a lot of answers are in the word. A lot of answers in faith. And, that will give you a lot of the answers that you need, because we're sitting here trying to figure it all out, and we can't figure it out, And so, yeah.
I'm gonna be honest with you. As a divorced man, I am one of the biggest advocates for marriage. And I will tell you why. It will open up doors you will never experience without it. There are things that women can do for you that you will never experience without it. And so, there are times where, especially if you're a person who's working on something, you're building a business, if you're doing that, you're doing this, you're doing that, there's just certain aspects. If you pick the right person, there are certain aspects of things you just will not see. But if you have this person who's your life partner, who knows you, who knows and studies you, knows when you're burnt out, knows when you might be thinking about something too much, knows when you know, that person can see things that you're not looking at, that you would never notice. They can fix things that you probably never noticed. So they might downplay it, but believe me, as a person who was trying to plan all these events, do all this stuff, and like do flyers and stuff like that, there was stuff she did way better than I did. And I was like, well, that looks great. I'll take that. Like, I will take that again in a heartbeat. Having that type of synergy to be able to, okay, well, now I don't have to handle all of this. It's undescribable.
Likewise, as a divorced man, of course I'm going to get married again. I think
Just a little bit of streets.
we're going to be right back. We're going to be right back. I think to your question, what's the benefit of being married? I would say that the wrong relationship will set you back. The right relationship can pull you forward. Relationships are mirrors. Like, you really get to see who you are in relationship and then determine whether or not you're going to do something about it. Like, we all have the opportunities to grow and to change, and we really get to see that opportunity when we're with somebody who knows us and gets to show us, like, who we really are. So I think that's a powerful element of being in relationship, and I'll pray for your friends who are in marriages that they feel like don't benefit them. But for me, okay.
And I just kind of want to, I do as well. I think when you think about marriage, when you think about how to even build wealth, right? Like you can buy real estate and then you can also get married. The fastest way to wealth building is to bring two incomes together. Even my friends who are married, when they were married with no kids, they're like, listen, we live like drug dealers, because you put two incomes together and it's like we outside, we live and we taking trips, we doing all these things. Then the kids come, obviously, but they talked about, listen, this home is because we're married. And then when you think about it, women are multipliers by nature. What does that look like? An example of that, right? Jay-Z used to perform in arenas. Now he performs in stadiums. Or he can't perform in stadiums on his own, because he's with Beyonce, he performs in stadiums, right? Women just do that, they just multiply by nature, and they will, when you think about the scripture, and so when you love consistently, it gives back tenfold, right? You can't even quantify what a woman can do for you. So I just wanted to elevate that in terms of like why marriage and why it's important.
Because I know somebody was going to ask, so let's just put it out there. What you just said about buying real estate, about building a legacy together with someone in two incomes is completely true. And we've kind of lost the view of that with all these 50-50 conversations. It's not really 50-50, it's 100-100. Sure, I'll pay for the apartment in the place we're living in now if all your money's gonna go towards buying rentals, and we're gonna, in 6 months or a year, we're gonna have 2 or 3, and now we doing 0-0. We're not doing 50-50 no more, we're doing 0-0. Because the stuff that we bought and we built and we paid for is all paying for us to live now. We don't have those conversations in the culture and the community. So that's why we on the podcast arguing about, my man better pay for all this so I can spend it on purses. It's like, no, what are we doing? Put your money together. Stop arguing about who's paying for what. Put your money together and go buy some stuff that will pay you back over time. I think that's an important conversation. Maybe you might have a question about that, but I'm gonna let him.
So I just got the signal that we're like pretty much at time, but I want to, okay, so we'll get some responses. I want to definitely chime in because this is part of like the work that we do with the Black Man Cancer. This is like one of the things that we do. One, we have mentoring programs in multiple schools across the country and even in incarcerated facilities as well. And so one thing that we do is about creating those spaces to have the conversations. This is obviously a co-ed space, and I still think there was lots of vulnerability, but there is how we get together as men, because we talked about this earlier today on Fox 5, and a lot of times as men we think we're suffering in silence. We're also on islands we feel like we're on an island by ourselves with our thoughts. It's important that we create, one of the things we do, we do dinners, and so we bring men together for these dinners to talk about and give advice. And I want to give a perfect example of why we have to do that so that we can give the advice. So in this dinner, we had a variety of different men. And so one of the questions that we ask in the dinner is, what's something that you're challenged with right now that somebody in the room might be able to help you with, because you don't know who's in the room? And so we asked that. And so a man was like, I'm a new father. I'm the first one in my friend group to have kids, so I don't have anybody to go to my wife just has given birth. She's going through postpartum, and I don't know what to do. I'm struggling. And so then there was a man in there who he's had 3 kids, and he said, brother, I know exactly what you're going through. This is what you need to do in order to be a better partner for your wife through this period. And then we had like a group chat, and then that man was like, I did everything you said, and now, everything is good. Might have just saved the marriage, saved the whole family, right? And so, but that also is that's just a point to the things that we also don't even learn to even be more effective partners, right? Most men don't, until you have the first kid or you get the second kid, how do I become an effective partner during the birthing process through postpartum? Most men, everybody, even men that have kids, be like, I didn't know what to do, right? So how do we create those opportunities and spaces to learn these things? This goes back to a little bit of what we're talking about. If we're talking a little bit about the male perspective, if we do this and we had a bunch of women up here, there's a lot of things that women would say, like, this is what I need you to know about me, this is what about us, about our gender, our race and gender, all those things. And when we have those conversations, and we can meet in the middle so we can be better partners for everybody, and everybody's talking about, we don't have the Hot Take podcast, but we have, really introspective conversations so that we can be better. But I know we got one more question, or just want to hear the responses. So one person can respond. I don't know. You can throw it up. Okay, and then we'll take one more question.
I'll be quick. I think advice has its limits, has its limitations. People give you advice from their perspective, from what worked for them. I think the previous generation, if you think about it, they did what they had to do to survive. Right? A lot of things that they did to survive won't work for us. There's a reason why there are professionals that can help you with that. So I would say seek therapy, find counseling, do something with a professional that can help you and give you good advice for what you need right now. Yes, right. Yeah, I mean, I gave the example of the guy who, in his marriage, he was following the example of his father, and it was driving him crazy, and he felt like he had to leave his marriage until working with, I'm going to toot my own horn here, until working with me, a professional, right, to understand his emotions and where things come from. So find a professional that can help you.
Communication, it's literally only 7% what you say, and everything else is like body and tone and things like that. And like Bobby was saying, some of us are coming with different language gaps, right? So who are some of the thinkers, intellectuals, artists? What books are y'all reading that maybe we can read so that we have a common language? Because James Baldwin, I'm paraphrasing, said, you think you're the only one who's going through something and then you read. And I feel like if we can unpack a text together, then we won't be hearing through the triggers and the traumas and the woundedness and the, right? But we can come together and say, this is the text that's gonna help us unpack. So what books are y'all reading? What's on your nightstand? Besides the Bible, praise God, besides the Bible.
One that I'll share that I think is really good. It is from a Christian perspective, but is Emotions by T.D. Jakes. It's actually a really good book. It talks about men, but from various perspectives. So a man's relationship with time, a man's relationship with his friends, and it's like really powerful text that I think when I read it, and I've read it 4 times, because every time when I got it as a gift at 25, and then I read it at 36. I'm in a different place in life, and so I think those are 2 books. That's a book that could be read between 2 people to create a common language.
Yeah, that's a great question. You knew I was going to say the Bible. That's why you plugged that in there. That's good. That's good. I read a book a while ago. It's called This Isn't the Life I Signed Up For by Dana Partow. And it just talks about the different challenges and the hardships that you face in life through marriage, through relationships, through the different phases. And so I think it gives a lot of good perspective on a lot of questions that you were just speaking to. And so I would say that's a good book to kind of bring some things to closure.
As far as love, I would say follow one of my mentors, Paul Carrick Brunson. He was from around this area. He's now doing stuff with Tinder and all that stuff like that. Great person to follow. Has books out. Barry Yola-esque is one that always I used to read. Yeah, and like I'm reading from a perspective of just all right, just let's get some meat from it. There was another one that I was going to tell you. So this is going to sound crazy, but there's a book called The Art of Seduction. I read this book when I was very young. It's not just about learning seduction. That's not the point of reading the book. The point of reading the book is that it breaks down people who are charmers, who are rakes, it breaks down people into 9 categories, and it talks about how they do what they do and why they do what they do. Sirens, how do they attract men and why do they attract men that way? And when you really read it for that way to understand people that you're dating, you'll start to see rakes. You'll see the person that pushes you away and pulls you back, and you'll understand why they do that and why it affects you the way it affects you. It's a science. And then when I went to coaching school, one of the things that we really harped on was some basics of a thing called neuro-linguistic programming. It's NLP. Whatever your opinions about it, whatever. But the modeling that it teaches of how to look at a person and decide, okay, that's what I want. How do I get to be that person? It changed my life. As far as like the little sciences that it gave me to say, okay, well, this is how you're speaking. Presuppositions, things like they use it when they sell you tickets to this. They say almost sold out, or they say time limited now. Like the things that we use that you don't understand, we're using to get you to take action, are actually things that we're trying to explain to you something without explaining it to you. We're trying to say to you, this event's good because the tickets are almost gone. When you understand those things, you start to hear it in game. When people try to game you and try to play with you, and you're out here and these guys are talking madness, you'll start to recognize it and you'll know what they're doing. And so those 4 things, I would probably say, are the 4 things that I would give.
I'm going to give 3 quick recommendations. One is on attachment style. This book is called Why Don't I Feel Good Enough? I can't remember the author, but attachment style talks about how you are in relationship and what your attachment style is. And we all have conditioning from our childhood that affects how we react in relationships. So learning your own attachment style and learning your partner's attachment style will really help you in relationship. The other 2 books are my favorite books. One is All About Love by Bell Hooks. And the other one is actually my favorite. It's called A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. So for the men in the room, I especially recommend those last 2 books, A Return to Love by Bell Hooks, All About Love by Bell Hooks, and A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson.
Can we give our panelists a round of applause? We could stay and keep going, but we can't. This happened last week too, so I gotta figure out the timing on everything. But I'm gonna have Naisa come back up. But if we can, before she comes up, each one of you can just share how people can stay in touch with you. Just that.
Yeah, so you can reach me on Instagram, Durelle Bailey. So it's just the way you spell my name. So that'll be the main way you can reach me. And then, my wife and I, we do webinars each month. We teach couples, we teach singles, we teach folks how to plan and how to structure their finances. And we give different systems and things like that on how to structure your life so you can achieve the goals that you want to achieve. So.
Yeah, reach me on Instagram. It's my name with the M in between Frank and Brown. I put my middle in there. So whole name, M in the middle, and I'll be right there.
Same deal. You can find me on Instagram. You can type in my name, Corey Daise. My @ is @prime_prospective. Prime_PRO-spective.
And you can follow me, Dr. Brandon Frame. Follow The Black Man Can. And make sure you like The Men's Den on YouTube. So when this episode drops, you can see it along with all the other episodes as well. So I'm going to turn it back over to Naisa from CarpeDM to share some announcements. We have some giveaways and I'm going to just turn it over to Naisa.
That was fantastic. Everybody, one more round of applause. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much.